sometimes. The Underground Railroad was neither underground or a railroad. So it's a bit of a confusing title, I know. But they called it the Underground Railroad because it was like a secret code they could use. At the time, trains were new technology, so they would use train technology to speak the codes. But it was actually a system of safe houses and allies that helped enslaved black people make it from the southern states to the north, where they could be free, and then eventually over into Canada, where they could be free. Now, I'm talking about this because the Underground Railroad, of course, is something that we should all be very, very proud of, right? It's a source of great pride for Canadians.
Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a professional actor, writer, and public speaker. And I'm right now on tour doing this Black History Month tour. And it's my 5th year in a row doing it. Nice. So my twin sister, Akila, started this company, Overture with the Arts. It's a non-for-profit that does performing arts information for kids across Canada. And she originally was working with another artist, and something happened and they couldn't finish the West Coast leg of the tour. And I was born in Montreal, but I live in Vancouver, BC. So I took over for the West Coast leg of the tour 1 year, and it went really well, and I just kept doing it. So I started doing Montreal, and then started doing, Alberta, and then Ontario, and now it's like a 4-province, 55 presentation tour.
Wow. What part of these speeches do you enjoy the most?
I love the questions from you guys, the questions from the students, because I'm always curious about what is it that lands or what piques people's interest.
And have you experienced racism? If so, how?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a multi-layered question, right? Because there's 2 types of racism. There's like overt racism, where someone will call you the N-word or a racial slur. That's obvious. But there's systemic racism, and systemic racism you can't really see, but that's just like you apply for a job and you just never get a job interview. You don't know why. But there have been studies done that show like if you have an ethnic sounding name, you're brought in for job interviews less than somebody who has like a traditionally white sounding name.
And what advice do you have for someone who is experiencing racism?
I would say to keep strong and remember that the problem is not with you but with that person, and just know that I think most people in the world are good people. I really do believe 95% of people are good people that have a good heart and mean well, and just know that the person you're dealing with in that moment is just a small person that does not represent most of the world, and you don't have to worry about that person for too much longer. The best way to stop it in general with people who aren't so far gone is just spreading awareness about the origins of what races are. I mean, I mentioned it during the speech, but race actually doesn't exist. There's literally you can't have children with something that's not of your same species. So the human race is one race, and our very, very superficial differences in how we look are just based on where our ancestors came from. So if someone understands that, I don't know how they could be racist.
And what do you hope students take away from your presentation?
Honestly, I just hope that they're inspired to go home and Google or YouTube anything I talked about. Because I feel like the presentation is a good appetizer on Black history, but there's so much more. I choose a select amount of things to talk about, but I just hope people go home and go, oh, Africville, that's cool. Let me check YouTube and watch a documentary on it, or that's what I hope.
Nice.
Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview. And I feel really, really blessed that I get to go to schools and talk about a thing that I care about, and that I know that you young people, I know that Gen Zs get a hard time for having short attention spans, but it's pretty dope that you guys listened to me for almost an hour and were pretty engaged, and I just appreciate it. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I said, Mommy, he called me the N-word, said my skin was doodle brown, acted like this wasn't a place for me and I should leave this town. My mother touched my little head. My father said, son, listen. You can't use violence every time someone is dissing. Then my folks, they spoke in unison, and this is what they said. They said, your skin is brown, like Ella's sound, like Jordan's round ball head, like mango trees and fallen leaves and freshly baked sweetbread. Like foundation beams, the earth that breathes, and dried coconuts in the west. Brown is the color of Muhammad Ali's chest and Maya Angelou's text.